Hello again, and welcome back to the Slow Flowers Podcast with Deborah Prinzing, episode 489. This is the weekly podcast about slow flowers and the people who grow and design with them. It's all about making a conscious choice, and I invite you to join the conversation and the creative community as we discuss the vital topics of saving our domestic flower farms and supporting a floral industry that relies on a safe, seasonal, and local supply of flowers and foliage. This podcast is brought to you by slowflowers.com, the free online directory to more than 800 florists, shops, and studios who design with local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers, and to the farms that grow those blooms. It's the conscious choice for buying and sending flowers. And thank you to our lead sponsor for 2021, Farm Girl Flowers. Farm Girl Flowers delivers iconic burlap wrap bouquets and lush, abundant arrangements to customers across the U.S., supporting more than 20 U.S. flower farms by purchasing more than $9 million of U.S.-grown, fresh and seasonal flowers and foliage annually, and by providing competitive salaries and benefits to 240 team members based in Watsonville, California, and Miami, Florida. Discover more at farmgirlflowers.com. For each podcast episode this year, we will also thank three of our major sponsors. Our first thanks goes to Rooted Farmers. Rooted Farmers works exclusively with local growers to put the highest quality, specialty cut flowers in floral customers' hands. When you partner with Rooted Farmers, you are investing in your community, and you can expect a commitment to excellence in return. Learn more at rootedfarmers.com. Well, I have a fabulous and informative conversation for you today, and I'm delighted to share the story of Fawn Rucker. Fawn owns Seagull Lily Flower Farm based in Utah's Salt Lake Valley. I first met Fawn in person in September of 2019 when I was in Salt Lake City for the annual GardenCom conference. I skipped out one day and rented a car to drive about 30 minutes south of the city to join a gathering of Utah flower growers. Laura Petard of Poppin' Blossoms hosted the lovely luncheon and tour of her beautiful cut flower fields. And you'll want to go back and listen to episode 418 that we recorded prior to that event. There I met Fawn Rucker of Seagull Lily Flower Farm. I actually mentioned in the interview that it was 2018, but my years are off. We met in the fall of 2019. I learned about Fawn's urban microfarm and her focus on retail sales of her flowers through a CSA subscription and farmers market outlets. Fawn has been on my wish list to interview ever since. She is the vice president of the burgeoning Utah Cut Flower Farm Association, and you'll hear an update about that amazing collection of Intermountain West flower growers. As it turns out, at the same gathering in September of 2019, I met Heather Griffiths of Wasatch Blooms, a colleague of Fawn's through the Utah Cut Flower Farm Association. And I shared a link to that interview with Heather, which was episode 428, airing November of 2019, along with the interview with Slow Flowers member Allie Harrison of Florage, Utah. You'll want to hear that too. It'll really put Utah on the map, and adding to that conversation is my conversation today with Fawn. Lots is going on in this part of the country, an area that Fawn points out is only recently embracing local flower agriculture and sustainable design. She shares a lovely about essay on her website for Sago Lily Flower Farm, which talks about her childhood wonder of the plant world and her gardening family roots. She picks up the narrative after moving from Southern California to Utah with her young family, writing this: "We were finally able to purchase our first home, a duplex on a tiny, unfinished lot. As we dove headfirst into landscaping, my childhood dreams were coming true. I finally had my own bit of earth to tend and plant. Only it wasn't enough. I needed more. So in 2013, we moved to a smaller home on a larger lot. Now, with 4 sons in tow, we began designing and building my dream potager, complete with a cutting garden. It didn't take long to realize that it would be a lot more fun to share the bounty of our garden than keep it to ourselves, and we established Sago Lily Flower Farm in 2017. We focus on growing cut flower varieties that are unique, that wouldn't survive the rigors of shipping, are most beautiful when grown locally, and we grow them in a way that is safe for our family and yours." Sago Lily Flower Farm is situated on 1/3 acre, a suburban lot in Salt Lake Valley. Fawn focuses on sustainable growing practices, feeding the soil with organic material, and she avoids the excessive use of herbicides and pesticides. I'm excited for you to hear the rest of the story, including how Fawn is branching out into education and workshops. You'll find photos of this talented farmer florist and links to her social places in our show notes at deborahprinzing.com for episode 489. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Slow Flowers podcast with Deborah Prinzing, and I'm delighted today to welcome Fawn Rucker of Sago Lily Flower Farm, and she's based in Salt Lake Valley, Utah. Hi, Fawn.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Happy New Year. It's so nice to do this together.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I've been saying, Fawn, I want you on the podcast for maybe a year, so come on, Deborah, get it together and make it happen. I'm glad we did this. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast is I was so curious about what you're doing. We met briefly when I was in Salt Lake in September of 2018. And so we've sort of, corresponded, and you were part of one of the recent writing workshops that I did. So it kind of brought us back together. So give everyone a snapshot of your floral enterprise, Sago Lily.
Okay, well, we're entering our 5th year of flower farming. I sell predominantly retail, so I sell at farmers markets. I have 2 just in my hometown that I go to. And then I also have a bouquet subscription. And then this last year, I've really leaned into the whole workshop, creating courses and opportunities for people to get outside and flower a little bit. So
flower as a verb, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that. So when you say retail, did you intentionally from the beginning think I want to go direct to consumer? Because I know there's just so many different models available to people.
There really are. And I think it takes a little time to figure out what you really want to do. I grew up in Southern California near some really great farmers markets. And when I moved here, as a young married person, I started seeking out farmers markets because I loved them. And there were no flowers at the farmers markets here. And it didn't dawn on me until, 10 years later that could be me. I could be the one taking, flowers to the farmers market. Mm-hmm. So initially I thought maybe I'd do weddings because I have such a small plot of land to grow on. And I thought that would be the most profitable, but I've really loved doing farmers markets. And so for now, that's where we're at.
So you're entering your 5th season or your 6th season?
We're entering our 5th.
Wow. That's a lot. That's like 0 to 60 very quickly, considering you had to build up demand for your flowers. Remind us how big, or did you say how big your land is or your micro farm?
I don't think I did. At this point, this next year, I'll have just under maybe 1/5 of an acre, or maybe it's 1/4 of an acre.
Well, is it where you live?
So I have 1/3 of an acre that my house sits on, and I grow on the back 1/3 of it. And then I have a neighbor that has a double lot. And this last year, she let me grow on that. And so we're developing the next half of it. So I started with half of that doubled our production. And then this year we're doubling again.
That's your annex farm.
Yes. We call it the sister site. Because it's 2 sisters that live there that let us grow there.
Oh, how cute.
So it's just, it's stuck,
So how does that work? Because I know you have a lot of young kids, not a lot, but I mean, it depends. They outnumber you and your husband.
Right.
Yeah. Are they very resentful that their backyard has been taken over by their mother?
Well, they still have a trampoline. I have 4 boys. So there's room for a dog and room for a trampoline. And for the most part, they're mostly happy with it. It's when they have to work on the farm that they're a little more resentful.
Right. But a trampoline isn't like a soccer ball. A trampoline can't hurt flowers. Like that's been my childhood. My kids were like the soccer kickers, and that can wreak havoc on a garden.
Right. Right. We actually had to fence out our dog because he's a 100-pound yellow Labrador and he is a bull in a china shop. So we have a fence around the grass. So if the kids wanted to kick a ball, there's
protection.
Yeah, somewhat.
Well, what did you start? Well, I wanted to start by asking you about your business name. Sago Lily is not normally known as a cut flower. So tell us the meaning of that.
Just really because, 4 or 5 years ago when I was getting started, local flowers was, at least here in Utah, it didn't have a lot of meaning behind it. If I said slow flowers or local flowers, people I had someone ask me if I was a grain farmer because I said I was a flower farmer and they thought flour like bread baking. And I just thought, oh my gosh, what am I getting into? People don't know what I'm doing.
Right. You're an early adopter.
Yeah, there just wasn't a lot of people doing it yet. And so I wanted something. Sago lilies are the Utah state flower.
So it kind of says place then.
That's what I was hoping. Yeah. But every year someone asks me if I have bulbs or seeds or cut flowers of sago lilies, and I have to explain that I don't cultivate them for cut flowers.
Isn't sago lily also, in addition to being the state flower, also a native flower?
Yes.
Yeah. So I should post, and I'll share with you, the coloring sheet we have of Utah with the sago lily illustration on it that Jenny Diaz created for American Flowers Week.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
You see, if we did that in Washington State, it would be rhododendron, which is not native, and it is a good cut.
It's a mouthful.
It is a good cut, but very few, only when it's in bud. So it doesn't translate either. But I love the name, and you're right. It's just been a gradual ramp up of people in Utah becoming interested in local flowers. And it pretty much, I feel like it is centered where you are in kind of the metropolis around Salt Lake, right?
Yeah, there's not a ton right in our valley, but to the valleys north and south of us that have a little more land than our big city does, there's a lot. It's just been amazing, the growth. Yeah.
Okay, so let's put a pin in that. I want us to come back and talk to you about the community in the state because it feels like there's some really, really good models there. But what possessed you in the first place to become a flower farmer? I mean, you have a backstory, I'm sure, that you can share with people.
Yeah, I've just always loved gardening. When I was 10, I bought myself with my birthday money a little carnation plant with a little plastic peach pot. It was the 80s and peach was all the rage.
I love it.
And I love the idea that it was a carnation. I could cut it too, and it was a plant. And I promptly killed it as a 10-year-old.
Yeah, this was in Southern California?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So I've always loved growing things. And so as a gardener for, I don't know.
Your whole life, practically.
Yeah. My grandmother's garden, my mom gardened,
You have a really nice story about your grandmother's your plural, many grandmothers' influence on you as a young girl. So yeah, it's probably just was second nature. You didn't really think I'm a gardener. You just did it.
Right. And none of them, they were all very hobby, no one grew all their own food or anything. It was just kind of, they were dabblers, I guess, maybe. So I think all of them would look at what I'm doing and kind of shake their head like, you're crazy a little bit.
This is what we inspired.
Right.
So then you moved to Utah. You became aware of the absence of flowers at the farmer's market. And then you said, that was maybe many years before you realized you could be that person. How did you get started? And what was the first thing you did?
Well, we had moved in 2013 to our current home, and I had 4 boys, and I was thinking about how to feed them more than anything else. Yeah. And I really wanted to have kind of a French-inspired kitchen garden with flowers. And so I was just going to have a few like cut flowers along the borders. And the more I got into researching cut flowers, the more I saw that this is a moment, things are happening here. And I got introduced to your podcast and I started listening to it. And I remember listening to, I want to say her name is Sarah Nixon from My Luscious
Backyard.
Yeah. And I thought, here's someone that's doing it like on the same scale that I could do. I could maybe grow in some of my neighbors' backyards. I could grow in my own backyard, and it became possible. And so it really feels full circle to be here.
Oh my gosh. That makes me so happy to hear. I love that story.
Yeah. I'm grateful to you for providing the inspiration because I love what I do, and it's really worked well for our family and our climate and where we're at. And
I suppose now that you're rubbing elbows with all the fellow food growers at the farmer's market, you just barter for that food rather than trying to grow it yourself, right?
Yes,
like,
that's exactly what happens. Right. Yeah. I get some great greens. I collaborate a lot with a farm called Snuck Farm down in Pleasant Grove. And I had a delivery of greens just today. So it's, someone else grows my food.
Yeah. Well, that makes me want to ask you, you mentioned climate and then you mentioned getting greens in January. So what is the, how does the climate support you in terms of, the seasons and the temperature ranges?
The Intermountain West is not the easiest place to grow flowers. There's a huge learning curve. Coming from Southern California, especially, like I go visit my dad and I think, do you know all the things you could be growing right now?
Can you be my other sister farm?
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So they don't even realize that it's like paradise there and how lucky they are.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. So it's a tough climate to grow in. We definitely have seasons. I have flowers from about April to October.
And what are you're 100% field grown, or do you have some structures? How do you set it up?
I'm all outdoors. Yeah. So I have some low tunnels that I'll protect, like ranunculus or maybe something that's a higher value plant. But for the most part, it's just straight outside, just like any cut gardener would grow,
Basically frost to frost is your window then. What I know that I think of the summer heat as being pretty unforgiving, but when I came and visited, in the fall of, I guess it was September of 2018, I was pretty blown away by the variety that I saw, field grown, in pretty hot conditions, but it's not humid. And maybe that's why things are, do okay as long as you have irrigation.
Right. It's a very dry heat. It's not hot and humid. I think maybe we have a fewer pests. We don't have June bugs or Japanese beetles. And so there's some, there's some good things about it, but it is very hot. And this last year we had no rain, really. It spit on us like twice, but wow. It was something.
So what do you do? How do you have things set up? Are you hand watering because the area is so small, or do you have some irrigation?
No, I definitely have irrigation. There's no way I could hand water.
Yeah.
It's big enough that
that's all you'd be doing.
Yeah, but it's true.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So Fawn, what are you known for? You mentioned the ranunculus. So I'm assuming that's kind of one of your first crops that you have, before Mother's Day, it sounds like. That's probably a big hit.
Yeah, people love them. We actually introduced them to the farm last year. And I don't know why I held off growing them for so long. People talked about how hard they were, I guess. But I fell in love with them last spring. And last spring was our first year having a spring subscription. So we grow tulips and fancy daffodils and anemones. And I love perennials. And so I grow a lot of cut flower perennials.
That's great because the spring ones are just like so handy to have popping out of the ground when nothing else is emerged yet. No annuals, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Before all your summer annuals hit.
So how does the subscription work for spring? People are buying for what, X number of weeks, and how have you got that? Sounds like you have a spring subscription and a summer subscription.
Yes.
Okay.
So we do 5 weeks, 5 consecutive weeks in the spring, starting kind of as soon as the flowers are ready. We're at the mercy of Mother Nature, and then we wrap up around Mother's Day, and then in June, the first week of June, we start our summer subscription. That goes for 16 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that. So how is it? You feel like you're really doing a lot of design planning, like from week to week, or do you just sort of have a regular routine where, okay, every Wednesday I'm just going to harvest and make these bouquets, and then I'd like to know how you get them into the hands of your customers.
Yeah, we have kind of a good schedule set up. I harvest Tuesdays, or I harvest Mondays. I do the bouquets on Tuesdays. We get them delivered to our delivery customers on Tuesday nights. And then this year, the Wednesday is when we're going to take them all to our drop-off locations.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a pretty good workflow set up. That's one thing over the years that has refined itself.
Wow. So you're cutting down on that delivery by trying to have a central pickup place? Is that it?
That's since we're doubling production again this year, there's only so much time in the day. And so,
yeah, you have, right? Something has to give, right?
Yes. And so one of the things I thought, well, if we can have more pickup locations, then I can get more flowers out there without having to take them to each individual home.
Yeah.
So,
but it sounds like when you mentioned just the fact that there's a lot larger farms north to you and in the county south of you, it sounds like the demand is growing in your area, and so you're making a lot of people happy who maybe didn't realize they could get local flowers before they found you.
Right. I had someone come up to me my first year at the market, and she had told me about going to the Seattle flower market, or the Pike's Place, and seeing all the flowers there and thinking, man, if only something like this existed in Utah, I would totally buy myself flowers every week. She's one of my subscribers now for 3 years, and she sees me at the farmer's market too. And
wow, that's the perfect client.
Yeah, people want it. It's just a matter of finding it here.
Yeah. So is there any competition between selling at the farmer's market and the CSA subscriptions? I mean, you're not like cannibalizing, your two different types of channels.
A lot of the people that have bought from me at the farmer's market turn into bouquet subscribers. Mm-hmm. And so it just is kind of a natural progression of, they get them once or twice and they go, oh, I've got to have this every week or every 2 weeks.
That's great for you.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, I'm assuming you're selling your subscription for spring right now.
Yes.
Just getting some income early has got to be a bonus.
Oh, it's so nice. Yeah.
Wow.
It helps for sure.
What are your late summer crops? Are you doing, I'm assuming you have dahlias, but I haven't looked that. I know you have them on your website, so I'm guessing that's a big hit.
Yeah, we do dahlias. We do lisianthus. We grow over 70 varieties of things. I'm probably too small to be growing that many, but to me, that's part of the joy of being a flower farmer. And so it keeps me content when things are hard to know that I get to choose all these lovely things to be surrounded by.
Yeah. Also, you have a designer's eye, so you're thinking beyond just the basic 12 options. You want that variety for your bouquets, it sounds like.
Right. And that's a big draw. That is something that I've had a lot of feedback on, that it's a unique variety, even from other farms that might just be growing those sunflower and zinnia bouquets that I've got something a little unique and special in each bouquet.
So you mentioned that you thought you were going to potentially do weddings when you first started. Do you feel good that you're not? I mean, I feel like this was the year to give up weddings if you were going to give them up, but you never really went down that path.
Well, it's kind of funny because last December, I had decided that I was going to add weddings to the mix.
For 2020?
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I had someone approach me with another opportunity, and I thought, well, I can't do both, but this seems like such an intriguing idea, and I think it'll be profitable. So I'll just wait on the wedding idea again. And so it ended up being great. And that was my collaboration with Snuck Farm in this backyard cut flower garden course.
Okay, so let's talk about that. You just told me a little bit about before we started recording, and you have another farm that you're working with and teaching at. Is that how it's set up?
Yes. So we're it's down in Pleasant Grove, and they had this kind of a blank space. They grow hydroponic greens, and so they're really dialed in. They have this beautiful operation, a beautiful farm. It is stunning. If you're ever back here, you have to go to Snuck Farm with me.
Put it on my travel list. I love it.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And so they were kind of looking for someone or something to do with this space that would add value to what they were already doing. And we developed this idea of this backyard cut flower garden course. And we had 20 rows. And so we were going to have a participant for each row. And we hoped that we would just get 10 people. That would be enough to do it. And we ended up selling out the course. And it was such a gift during 2020 to have something that we could go to outside. You know, we had to move it back a little bit, our starting date. But it was just something safe to do. And people were so hungry for that experience to be outside and have their hands in the dirt and to be growing.
Wow.
And learning something new.
So you have it on your website, Backyard Cut Flower Garden Course with Snuck Farm. And so are they co-teaching with you, or is it more that they're kind of your partner host and you're developing the curriculum?
Right. So they host it, and I teach all the classes and lead the course.
Okay. So first of all, I'm just so curious about this. It's a wonderful idea to kind of mobilize this student base who maybe they don't want to be cut flower farmers, but they want to learn learn your knowledge. Is that kind of your demographic of who's taking the course?
Yeah, I noticed early on that I had people who loved flowers but did not want to go outside. They're not gardeners, but they love flowers and they recognize the value of them. And then I had another group of people that loved flowers and would buy from me, but also wanted to grow their own. And so I felt like I could help fill that need too, because I think people worry about creating flower farmers, or if people grow their own, they won't buy from me.
Right.
But my experience has been that they get comfortable with you, they know you, they trust you, that whenever they need flowers, they're going to come to you. And so, and it can be profitable to teach people, these skills.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said you had 21 rows and you expected 10, but you ended up having, when you sold out, did you end up having like 20 plus students?
We had 20 students. Yeah, it was 20 rows. And so it was a big course. So we ended up splitting it in half, and I'd teach one half 1 week. And then the next week we'd do the same curriculum. And that worked out well too, because during the summer people go on vacations. And so if they missed the 1 week, they could come to the other week and not miss any of the information.
Plus, it would probably help with perceived social distancing, safety, and all of that. So they're actually hands-on planting their own row of cut flowers, learning with this complete in real-time process with you.
Yep. We would go out there, we'd look for pests, we'd plant the plants, we'd harvest. Everything was completely hands-on. They learned how to net flowers, so that nothing was falling over. They learned plant spacing, just anything you would learn working on a farm or growing your own cut flower garden. with an expert, so to speak, kind of holding your hand the whole time. So
this is amazing. You've really tapped into like this. Well, it was the year our visceral need to connect with nature, and it was beyond flowers. It was just that whole experience to have your hands in the soil. It must have been wonderful for people.
Yeah, the timing was good.
Can you talk about how you charged for that? Are you comfortable sharing that information?
Sure. I mean, it's on the website.
Okay.
We're going to be announcing this next 2021 season. So it was $1,000 early bird pricing. It was $1,200 if you signed up after a certain date, but we didn't have anyone sign up that late. Everybody got the early bird pricing.
That's amazing.
And yeah.
But they're getting instruction plus this boatload of cut flowers too.
Right. They were taking home buckets at, July, August, September, they would take home a bucket or two each week. And so they got a lot of value just in their harvest. And then, if you think about how many classes, I want to say it was 11 or 12 classes.
I was going to ask you if it was a 5-week course, but you split it. You were at least teaching for 10 or 12 weeks just to kind of.
Yeah, it was a 5-month course.
Oh, 5 month. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So how did that work that's why you can't, you're doubling your business and now you've got this thing going. Do you hire anybody to help you, or I don't know how helpful those children are?
I have a 14-year-old and he was 16 at the time. So they were more help than they did get paid, and they did help. And I hired some people we did 2 farm, going into 2020 in January before anything hit, I knew that it was going to be one of the hardest seasons of my life. Mm-hmm. I knew all the things. I just knew, okay, you're going to get through it. You're going to start all these things, but it'll be worth it on the other side.
You're such an optimist. But that was all before COVID. You said that, right?
That was before COVID. And so
I learned a lot. It's really bad. But women we're can do. We're like, well, we'll just figure it out, right? And I've got 4 kids. Oh, it's fine. We'll figure it out. I mean, if you didn't think like that, you wouldn't start anything.
Right. And we did. I don't remember much of August, but we got through it. And
that's beautiful.
And I'll be hiring more help this year.
Yeah. So this course then, you have the sign-up sheet or the sign-up button already on Sago Lily Flower Farm's website. So we'll share a link. It's not filmed though. It's not virtual. It's all in person, right?
It is in person.
Okay.
Yeah, there are already wonderful farmers doing virtual things, and I just saw the need locally for someone to teach it in person.
I think that's. You've just like illustrated how anybody could do this in their market if, with their own spin on it and their own particular region and zone and climate. It's gardening in general is so highly regionalized. I totally agree that this course is, better because it's tailored for right where you are.
Right.
Yeah. So you're going to cap it at 20 again for 2021? Yeah.
That's how many rows we have. So we want each.
I love it.
That's kind of our natural boundary because we have that many rows.
It reminds me of, I don't know if you guys have public community gardens in your area. In the Seattle area, all the pea patches, everybody has their like designated little mini raised bed or, a couple clustered together. And you feel a lot of possessiveness about that. So I'm sure your folks really took ownership of those raised beds.
They did. In fact, I've got 2 that have told me they're coming back this next year. So I'm trying to add a few different cut flower varieties so that they have something new to learn.
Absolutely. That's so great. How big are the raised beds?
They are 30 inches by 36 feet.
That's massive. Yeah. That's like the size of beginning flower farmers in many cases, especially if you're in the city, right?
Right.
Well, that's cool. So I'm just curious at Snuck Farm, what are they getting out of it? They're obviously partnering with you, maybe on the revenue side, but are they selling their produce to people when they come, or is it just more of a awareness of who they are?
I think they're really great at building community.
Mm-hmm.
And so they saw it as something they could offer to their community to enrich, what people want in their area. And I also sell a share. They have snuck shares, and that's their greens. And so we do a flower share for 9 weeks during the summer.
Through their CSA.
Through them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. It's amazing that in a year that many people were wringing their hands, worried about not having a place for their flowers to go, this setup that you came up with was tailored to how people want to, how people could be, how they could be outdoors in a space socially distanced, and how they could have flowers come to them if they didn't feel comfortable going to the farmer's market.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. So the other thing I want to ask you about before we wrap up is the Utah Cut Flower Farm Association. We've had a couple of your colleagues, your peers, on the podcast in the past, and I think I'll pull up that previous interview and share it in our show notes so people can learn a little bit more. But how are things going with that? That group is only 2 years old, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're just about 2 years old. We started in February of 2019. We have 112 members now.
That's amazing.
It really amazes. Yes, it amazes me.
Considering how lonely it was when you first started, right?
Right. I could find 3 other farmers through social media and internet stalking when I started, and there were more out there that I just couldn't find, but not very many more.
Mm-hmm. But over
under
100.
10 probably.
Yeah, but having over 100 is amazing.
Right. And a lot of them are backyard cut flower gardeners or people that are intrigued with it. We also have a florist membership so that we can help facilitate growers and florists finding each other.
Yeah. It's like a mini Slow Flowers, but just in a particular, in one state, but also kind of your major markets too, right?
Right. And I kind of wish we had named it the Intermountain West Cut Flower Association, just because we do have people in Nevada and Idaho and Colorado and Arizona that have joined, because our climates are similar enough. We have markets that are similar enough that we can really kind of draw strength from each other and share what we know.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. So listeners who aren't in Utah but are in, the Intermountain West can maybe find a home, joining in. That's very similar to the Pacific Northwest Cut Flower Growers group that probably doesn't have as much website presence that you do, but they have a website. But they've started with a Facebook group, and there are people from Northern California, there are people from British Columbia. It's not just, the traditional definition of Oregon and Washington. So if the growing environment is similar, there's so much you can learn from each other.
Right.
So you're an officer of that, right?
Yeah, I'm the vice president right now.
Ascending to president sometime soon.
I don't know. That's a little overwhelming to think about.
Don't have any ambitions. What are your main activities? I mean, other than I know that you're all connected through technology. Do you have meetings or trainings and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we do. So COVID kind of put a damper on a lot of our plans. We try to have, we really wanted to have a member meeting 4 times a year.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
A lot of those got switched to virtual.
Yeah. The thing that impressed me the most is you have a relationship with the university, right? Isn't that seems to be kind of a stamp of credibility.
Yeah, it's really amazing. We have this great professor that works with us. Her name's Melanie Stock, and she is running all kinds of, what are they called?
Trials? Yeah.
Yes. And she's doing cold hardiness testing with ranunculus, nitrogen studies with dahlias, and she kind of pulls from the growers inside the association. And so we work closely with her. And, coming from an area where there's not a lot of research with cut flowers, to have her is a tremendous asset to any cut flower farmer, but especially here where our climate is so hard to grow in.
Yeah. And for her, I can only imagine that it's like having this pool of willing collaborators who, it's a dialogue. She's got ideas, you've got ideas, and you are all working toward the same goal, which is probably just getting more local flowers into the hands of people in your region.
Exactly. And creating more profitability and understanding, what it really, all the inputs it really takes to create a gorgeous dahlia and sell it. So.
Okay. So I'm going to issue this invitation to you. I'm putting you on the spot because when we had our meetup for the Slow Flowers Creative Workshop, the floral storytelling class, you talked about knowing you wanted to do more writing this year. So I'm going to invite you, if you're interested and you have the time, to do a story about what is happening with the Utah Cut Flower Growers Association and the professor, and maybe we can publish it on the Slow Flowers Journal and just get the word out. So
that'd be great.
All right, in your spare time. But I mean, honestly, I'm thinking to myself, you have no spare time, so it's a dumb request, but.
I work well with deadlines, though. So sometimes I just need an invitation and a tell me when you want it.
Yes.
I'll work on it.
You seem so capable of managing everything that's on your plate. I have no doubt that that's what happens when you ask a busy woman to do one more thing. She just fits it in somewhere. So that's great. Well, I was going to end the podcast by asking you what you're excited about for 2021, but I think we've kind of covered the fact that you've got this amazing sort of new channel of education it can, who knows where it can go. I mean, this is one model, but I think if these return students want more, that's going to drive you to create more content and more education, right?
Right. We've already got some one-off workshops kind of designed with them in mind. We're going to have one in February about planning. So it'll be a small group workshop where we can socially distance again, but we're going to hopefully the idea is at the end of the workshop, they walk away with plans, with seed list, with plant lists for everything they'd need for their individual space.
Wow. So maybe for someone who doesn't want to invest on the full 5 months, this is going to give them kind of a crash course in just getting started in their own backyard.
Right. Or sometimes I think, some of the people that took it last year, they really enjoyed it, but it was all kind of planned out. They just kind of walked through it and they understand how to grow and how to harvest, but wrapping around how to implement it in their own space. That's what they need a little more help with. And so, they'll come with their own drawings and we'll fill out what's going to help them have a season's worth of flowers in their own backyard.
Wow, that is invaluable. I mean, that is worth it, whatever penny it is that they have to pay for that. To that end, I love the fact that you have on your website, get your free guide, 9 steps to long-lasting cut flowers. People just sign up and then they can download the guide. Is that how it works?
Yep. Yeah. It just talks about how to keep your locally grown flowers lasting as long as possible.
Is it mainly your retail customers who are downloading that then, or?
I think a lot of people, anyone that has any interest in cut flowers, whether they're growing them themselves or other farmers, they want to take a look. Are curious about what I've said there. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I will share that link too. I'm going to download it or sign up for it myself, so I can enjoy your writing. And
thank you.
And you have a blog, so you've been writing whenever time allows since you started the business.
Right. Yeah. I like the idea of kind of sharing information, and I like the idea of putting out there what I wish I could have found when I was looking for information.
You know what? I think that's really a great gauge to say, well, I couldn't find this. I had to go learn it sort of by digging and also maybe from multiple sources. So it's nice to sort of now put your own voice to that. And everything you're teaching is straight from your own experience, it sounds like.
Yep.
That's cool. Wow. Well, this has been so much fun, Fawn. I'm glad we had a little bit of time together, a little bit more than a half an hour. And I thank you for the invitation. I've got to get back to Utah. I've got some ideas, so I will message you about those. But I don't know. It's like we're pent up. As soon as we all get the vaccine, we're going to be traveling like crazy, I think. So, and
I think you're right.
not too far away from you. I'm a very short, affordable flight on Alaska Airlines. By the way, I had to cancel so many flights in 2020. I've got like a huge credit with them. So maybe
come see us.
Yeah, maybe in the fall.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks so much. And we'll have photos. Fawn's going to send photos of her flowers and her farm, her mini farm, and maybe even a couple of photos of the class. That would be really fun for people to see in the show notes at deborahprinzing.com for today's episode. And I wish you a very abundant and peaceful and profitable 2021. I wish that for everyone, but I do wish that for you, Fawn.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on.
That was fun. It was great information. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining Fawn and me as we recorded our inspiring conversation. Check out links to Sago Lily Flower Farm's already sold out Spring 2021 Backyard Cut Flower Garden Course offered in collaboration with Snuck Farm. And if you live in any of the Intermountain states, Nevada, Idaho, Colorado, and Wyoming, check out the Utah Cut Flower Farm Association. As Fawn mentioned, there are people and resources for the entire region. Our next sponsor thanks goes to Syndicate Sales, an American manufacturer of vases and accessories for the professional florist. Look for the American flag icon to find Syndicate's USA-made products and join the Syndicate Stars loyalty program at syndicatesales.com. I want to direct you to a few cool video resources that we posted for Slow Flowers members this past week as well. First, you can find the concluding post in our 8-part weekly series about all the insights and themes from our 2021 Slow Flowers member survey. It is posted at slowflowersjournal.com, and I'll share the link in today's show notes. Karen Thornton and Nisha Blancas joined me for a lively recap, question and answer conversation discussing some of the survey's findings that reveal much, much more about you, our members. We also shared many of the comments and questions that members wrote in response to 2 open-ended questions. What are the key ways in which you have found value in the Slow Flowers member benefits? And do you have any other comments, questions, or concerns you'd like to share with Slow Flowers? We recorded our Zoom conversation on January 14th, and you'll want to watch. Karen and Nisha added so much to that session, but truly, Ed and Rami, Nisha's 2 cats, are the stars of the show. Since Nisha pointed out that she looks for images of your flowers with your pets while curating the Slow Flower Society Instagram feed, this will come as no surprise that cats featured in our conversation. Last week, I also invited you to join our free webinar about botanical couture fashions for the upcoming American Flowers Week 2021 campaign. It is a fabulous session, and I've posted the link to our replay video in today's show notes for you to hear from more than 10 past botanical couture creators, each of whom shared how they conceptualized their unique, iconic look for past American Flowers Week collections. And that's a great segue to thank our final sponsor of the week, Johnny's Selected Seeds, because Hillary Alger and Joy Longfellow of Johnny's have collaborated with Slow Flowers and American Flowers Week for 3 years running to produce a botanical couture floral fashion. Thank you so much, Johnny's Seeds, an employee-owned company that provides our industry the best flower, herb, and vegetable seeds, supplied to farms large and small, and even backyard cutting gardens like mine. Find the full catalog of flower seeds and bulbs at johnnysseeds.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. The Slow Flowers podcast has been downloaded more than 680,000 times by listeners like you. Thank you for listening, commenting, and sharing. It means so much. As our movement gains more supporters and more passionate participants who believe in the importance of our domestic cut flower industry, the momentum is contagious. I know you feel it too. I value your support and invite you to show your thanks to support Slow Flowers' ongoing advocacy, education, and outreach activities. You can find the donate button in the column to the right at deborahprinzing.com. I'm Deborah Prinzing, host and producer of the Slow Flowers podcast. Next week, you're invited to join me in putting more slow flowers on the table, one vase at a time. And if you like what you hear, please consider logging on to iTunes and posting a listener review. The content and opinions expressed here are either mine alone or those of my guests alone, independent of any podcast sponsor or other person, company, or organization. The Slow Flowers podcast is engineered and edited by Andrew Brenlin. Learn more about his work at soundbodymovement.com.